Welcome to Women Igniting Change, the place to be for women leaders and decision makers who are passionate about changing the world and determined to act. I'm your host, Robin Jorgensen, former corporate executive, global speaker, and founder and CEO of Women Igniting Change. Let's dive in. Hey, change makers. Welcome back to the Women Igniting Change podcast. Joining me in the studio today, I have Liza Henshaw. She is the first president of Global Citizen, former COO of the Environmental Defense Fund, and has spent decades as a fierce advocate for social change. Liza, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to dive into this global conversation for sure. So let's start with your personal journey a little bit. What drives your passion for social impact and global advocacy?
Okay, well, I don't know if it all started out that I had a personal passion in global advocacy. I think people sort of, I had a passion for graduating from college and moving out of my parents' house and getting a job.
That's a good start.
And then it goes to the next step, and the next step in the, in your evolution of what are you looking for, what's important to you. So I think in the beginning, you go from the paycheck to, well, I actually, want to work for someone who I think is reasonable, and you start that evolution. And I cared about teams, and I was really energized by the people I work with. So I am an extreme extrovert. So when I'm in a really good team, I'm so fueled by them, like that I can't even go to sleep at night. And so as I started working, I was actually a programmer. And I really liked the idea that a bunch of us were writing something that actually made something happen on the, and then over time, I ended up being introduced to some people at Environmental Defense Fund. And I was like, so I don't think that's for me. And a guy who had put my name forth for this position calls me up and he's like, I'm the one who gave them their name. What are you doing? And I go, I don't really know anything about the environment, and I don't think that's my passion. And he goes, you're stupid. They're incredible. Go take some of the interviews. And I was like, okay, what do I know? And 13 years went by, and I was so in awe of what EDF does and the people that work there. I didn't know that many incredibly smart people worked, like, not for money, but for like the greater good. And these were some of the smartest lawyers, economists, scientists, project managers. I was like, where have all of you been? That word, it is that they weren't pursuing the almighty dollar somewhere. They were actually trying to figure out how to price carbon. And I got there and I was like, I know nothing. And it was humbling and exhilarating at the same time that I didn't need to be a scientist and I could help. And even though I've been gone from there 8 years, I still talk to a whole bunch of them. I still read about, EDF just launched a satellite to track methane in the atmosphere. And I remember literally being in the room when we were drawing pictures on a whiteboard. And I was like, we're putting a satellite up there? Doesn't that sound like crazy talk? Well, no, it's actually been launched. It is circulating the planet right now, measuring methane. So I want to say that I've had this passion. I meet younger people who have been working on like school lunches in Kigali or in Kenya. And I'm like, God, love you. You've been doing this since you were 17. I didn't know anything when I was 17. So that's a little bit of my crazy journey.
That's amazing. So you've had extensive leadership positions in different sectors. How do you navigate that intersectionality of global issues and incorporate diverse perspectives into your leadership at Global Citizen?
Well, I just came back from spending 8 days in Africa. It's my second trip this year. I think I was there 8 times last year, and in lots of different countries. And you got to start out with what you know, and what is inside of you isn't what everybody else knows and inside of them.
Yep.
So what I know and who I am and my values, what I've done, is valuable, but it's only as valuable as the conversation it sparks and what I get to learn about you. And I think also the ability, if you botch it, to just say, "Oh, I'm sorry." I mean, there's little things like a few years ago, someone said, just pause and ask them the right way to say their name because you probably have never said that name before. And so now I'm so much more comfortable saying, "I'm sorry, could you do it one more time?"
Right.
And it actually, it's a sign of respect. And then, so I just start there and then listen and go, well, I think this way. And I don't find it hard unless I'm in a really super rush and just want some outcome. And then when you know that to be true, you got to say, stop. You're trying to make everybody else work to your time frame and you will not get what you're looking for. So I think some of that, honestly, I'm at that ripe age where I only can do that now because of the age I have, and my like 30-year-old self would have just plowed through and probably not
Agreed.
done a good
Me
job.
too. Yeah, and I've done that many times on the continent. Just like step back and re-ask. Can you help me say that again? The way that you want to hear it. Yeah, many times.
Yeah, and sometimes it's okay to just say, "Would you be okay if I asked you this?" Because I
Right.
don't actually know a lot about that, and that's a wonderful opening for most people.
Especially as Westerners going over there, because unfortunately there are Westerners that go over with that Western lens and they just try to apply it on top of whichever of the 54 countries.
Sure.
And you and I know that's not the correct approach. So when we humble ourselves to say what they think, they really appreciate that.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I started at Global Citizen in the beginning of 2016. I was asking, we had this idea to take Coldplay and Jay-Z to India for World Toilet Day. And in case that's not in your calendar, it's November 19th.
Great. We'll
And
put it in
I learned
there.
a lot about toilets and the simple fact that a lot of girls drop out of school when their bodies start developing and they get their period because they go to a school and there isn't a girls' room and it's all open and they are uncomfortable. And the solution, their mom keeps them home. So for $200, you put a toilet in with a curtain in between, and guess what? Girls stay in school, and we can talk about all the great things that happen once girls stay in school. But when I was going over to, it was like my second week at Global Citizen, and the founder Hugh Evans said, well, if you have all these questions about how we're going to do this, why don't you go over there and get answers instead? And I was like, but I don't know anything. And I ended up going to India that year 4 times. I still stay in touch with all these people I work with there. I was invited at the end of a meeting, they'd invite you to dinner at their house. And I'm like, I'm a New Yorker. We don't invite people over for dinner on the first day I meet you. And I was like, okay. And I was like, what time's dinner? And they're like, 10:30. No, I was like, at night? And we'd have dinner, we were dancing, and then the next day we'd be working on. I was like, this is the most welcoming, friendly, embracing culture. I love these people. And that really just started, it kind of got rid of my fear of just because you don't know it doesn't mean you should be afraid of it. It just means go and, embrace it. And it's pretty fun. It still is.
Yeah, I love that. So let's dive into Global Citizen a little bit. So how do you leverage the power of collective action to address those critical issues of poverty, climate change, and inequality on a global scale? How do you do that?
Sure. So we love actions at Global Citizen. We refer to them as actions are our currency. Right now, in the total actions on our platform, we've had over 33 million actions by our 12 million global citizens. And actions can be small, that you read a piece of content and liked it. Maybe you read a piece of content and took a quiz on it. And they move up into more difficult actions. Can you go plastic free for a week? Can you call this legislator or member of Congress and tell we give you the phone number and the basics of a script and say this is important to you. They go up to sending tweets to world leaders, and so they run the gamut, and then they go into real life. So show up we did it in beaches in South Africa and Ghana. Come to a beach cleanup, and we will give away tickets to one of our shows. But you've spent the day cleaning beaches with us.
Mm-hmm.
So they come in a big range. And while one action of taking a quiz doesn't seem like a big deal, it is the collective action. So you add them up, and your tweet, and then 40,000 tweets from other global citizens, and then another tweet from Rihanna, who brings a bigger, heavier thumb to that scale.
Right.
And she tags President Macron and asks for a more significant contribution to the Global Fund for Education. That makes a big deal. So, and then we want to go back to that, to the global citizens who took action, and say thank you, and thank you for your actions, because the collective, this is what we were able to do. And sometimes those actions are pointed towards a world leader saying, this is what we need you to do with your overseas aid development. Sometimes it's to a corporation saying, we need you to work on this and your net zero contributions. And sometimes it's to institutions like the World Bank and some of their lending practices. So our actions come in every flavor. It doesn't have to be, just something that we want you to be comfortable with it and own it. So you might not want to call a legislator, but you're happy to do something over here. Right. We're doing an action right now. People are sending in their pictures of Central Park and when they've been to the concert before, and it goes into a draw for you winning free tickets. So they're also fun.
Right. Well, what I love about, as a global citizen on the platform myself, what I love about the quizzes is, it's educational. So you learn new things about whatever given topic you're taking the quiz on. And then you could be at a networking event or a dinner party or some type of event, and you have that new insight and knowledge that you can then extrapolate and share with other people.
We also look for more global citizens that we can tell when you're taking a lot of actions on topics, and then we offer other ways for you to get engaged, and we refer to them as our super activists. And then we will do a call-in or an event where we will reach out to them and say, we know you're really interested. Would you like to dial in and listen to a session we're doing with Alok Sharma, who managed the COP a couple years ago? And you get to be like, wow, it's pretty inside baseball. I'm really glad to participate in it. Yeah. So we want to tailor it for the issues that you care about: education, gender equality, sustainability. We want to, as much time as you have and want to give to it, and just keep you involved, because people's time and everything ebbs and flows with their life. So, and I'm glad to hear you're a global citizen.
It's an amazing platform for sure. So, there's traditional forms of advocacy like petitions and campaigns and those kinds of things. Can you discuss what are some innovative approaches or initiatives that Global Citizen uses to engage and mobilize that global community to address these systemic challenges?
Sure. So let me give you an example of something we did recently that was sort of a vintage global citizen-y, and it's got real outcome and pop. We call it pop and policy, and it's also so it's like it's like peas and your dessert. So about a year ago, I don't know if you remember, when there was fires in Canada and the air was rather thick around New York. It was also a time, this is March of 2023, that there was a devastating cyclone in Malawi called Cyclone Freddy. And this storm in over a month killed 1,200 people. And it was really horrible. But it then got even worse, because 2 million people lost their farmland and forced Malawi's farmers, mostly women, into not knowing where their next meal was going to come from.
Yep.
And then over 1,700 people died due to a cholera outbreak as the overall health system of the country was overwhelmed by this storm. And, we all know that climate change right now is going to bring this increase of tropical storms. But what isn't a given is that 2 million people have to starve and die of a cholera outbreak because Malawi didn't have the funds to strengthen their systems in their farms.
Right.
The reason why they didn't have those funds was at the exact same time of Cyclone Freddy. Malawi was paying $127 million to the World Bank in debt loan repayments. And that was money that the World Bank had loaned them in the first place in order to strengthen their systems and their infrastructure. But they were now too busy doing the debt service.
Right.
So last April, working with the Prime Minister of Barbados, Mia Mottley, another absolute rock star, we launched a campaign called Power Our Planet. And we were targeting the World Bank, and specifically Ajay Banga, who had just become the World Bank president. And in our campaign, we were asking him to put in something called a debt pause clause. I know, super catchy. But when this crisis hits, that in your loan agreement, you could stop paying the loans in order to take care of your people. Right. And this seemed like a super reasonable idea. So we did what Global Citizen does. We asked our 12 million members and the artist community and our corporate partners to start taking action. And we pointed that action right at the World Bank and right at Ajay Banga. And we had the artists, Denai Guerrera, Billie Eilish, Lenny Kravitz, and her all joining in this campaign with all of our users. And we're teaching them what a debt pause clause is. I mean, when I talk about you get the pop and the policy, we were into the policy. And they didn't just, the artist group, they agreed to perform, but they also used their platform for educating their fans. And Billie Eilish tweeted, and then Rihanna, who's been a longtime supporter, she tweeted directly at the World Bank president and said, we need you to do this. We got 250,000 actions right away. President Macron of France invited us to the base of the Eiffel Tower to throw a concert, because that's what people know us for.
Right.
It was beautiful. Billie Eilish, Lenny Kravitz, her, John Baptiste. And Ajay Banga, in his very first appearance as the president of the World Bank, walked onto stage and said that he would allow countries suffering in the aftermath of a natural disaster to pause their loan repayments for 2 years. And if this had been in place last year, that would have given Malawi $127 million to help their people immediately. And the other piece that Ajay Banga and the World Bank has done is when this happens, they will put it into effect within 2 weeks. So when this catastrophe hits, you can be helping. That's activism in a completely different way with a tangible benefit. And it started out that it would support 4 countries, and I think we're up to something about 9 of the Caribbean countries that will benefit from this debt pause clause. And we're not done yet. So look for us while we try to see even more.
That's amazing. I love, because you leverage the collective action of all of the members and the celebrities to think outside the box and not do business as usual and status quo, and come up with new innovative ways to tackle, global. I love that.
When we first started it, people were like, how are you going to get the global citizens to care about, 1, the World Bank, and 2, something as it's really kind of wonky, a debt pause clause. Right. And we try to name it something else. And we're like, no, we've been working with our global citizens. They are used to coming to us, learning and going, oh, okay, now that I know that and you're giving me something to do, I want to do that. So I think some of, the solutions, even if they take a bit of explanation, you'd be surprised. People want to come along with you as long as they know that you've designed an outcome that genuinely changes the world.
Yeah. Incredible. All right. So let's move on to your Move Africa initiative, which I love because you and I were talking earlier and our listeners all know Rwanda's like a second home to me. So I love that you're putting this initiative into practice. So give me more about the vision behind Move Africa and how it aims to pioneer this world-class music touring circuit across the African continent.
Sure. And I'm excited to talk about it because it is a visionary idea. What happened was in 2018, Global Citizen brought a huge concert to Johannesburg. It was called Mandela 100 in honor of what would have been Nelson Mandela's 100th birthday. And it was a massive, life-changing show. Beyonce, Jay-Z, Ed Sheeran, Trevor Noah, Oprah.
I remember seeing photos of it. Yeah.
I can keep going because what started out as like a 5-hour show was an 11-hour show because everybody wanted to come. And it was amazing. And then, we take the next couple days off and we go, okay, where are we going to go next? And so we worked for a little while and then COVID hit. And we did an event in Lagos, Nigeria in 21. That was one of 5 events that we did simultaneously around the world. And then we, take some more time off and we do this really great event in Accra, Ghana in 2022 with Usher and SZA. And as great as these events are, there was no predictability of where we were going. People would be like, where's Global Citizen going next? What are you doing next? And I'd be telling people, I'm trying to raise the money to see where we're going to go next. And I always wear a Global Citizen t-shirt, particularly in South Africa. People will be like, where are you going next? Where are you going next? And I was like, I wish I knew and that's when we just said, this is not the right way to affect change. I'm proud of our events and the amount of commitments and the money we raised on the stages, but we needed to bring certainty to the markets so that all the people that we employ locally would know what was happening next. Mm-hmm. So we said, let's build this where the partnerships need to be 5 years and where we keep coming back to the same market and invest in that market, in the skills and the businesses and the entrepreneurs. Because remember, the touring market hires a lot of people. Right. When we put one of these shows on, it's everything from lights, sets, scenic tourism, van drivers, hospitality. We do a bunch of side events. We are an employer. And our goal is always to hire as many local employees as we can. So we thought, okay, this is a good idea, but now we need to have someone believe in it. And the first country that believed in it was Rwanda. And if you follow me on social, I've now met with President Kagame 3 times. That man got it right away. He was like, I want people to visit Rwanda because you don't understand how unbelievably beautiful this place is, how wonderful the people are. And so I want to work with Global Citizen. He also had a beautiful new arena called the BK Arena. So
I've been there. It's amazing.
Structure.
Yeah.
And so we did a 5-year deal with Rwanda and the Rwanda Development Board and a couple of other local charities where Global Citizen under our new brand, Move Africa, would come to Rwanda. And on December 6th last year, Kendrick Lamar headlined our show in Kigali, and we are in a 5-year partnership with Kendrick's agency and imprint called PG Lang, which is a bunch of incredible, visionary, committed people who believe in bringing art and touring and the creator economy pan-Africa. But as we said, we started in Kigali. In January, at Davos, we announced with President Akufo-Addo we would be doing the same thing in Ghana. And soon we hope to have an announcement of a 3rd country that we will then tour with this year, that we, at the end of this year, we will go from Kigali to Accra to the 3rd country. And in 2025, we will be in 5 countries. And as you can imagine, those countries are beginning to get lined up because people are watching. Right. And the idea is we are going to create the jobs and the skills and help attract the capital needed for these businesses in order to support a robust touring market and the creator economy that is actually the underpinnings of a world-class tour. So it's an amazing opportunity, and I love the different places that we're going with it. And the interest from the philanthropic community, from the artist community, and from corporate brands has been extraordinary, because a lot of people want to talk about investment in Africa and job creation in Africa. But when you create the sector, which is what this touring business will do,
Right.
it makes it a lot easier to create the jobs because now the sector and that
Right.
economy can support it.
Yeah. So I love that. And I'm so excited to attend an event there. It'd be amazing. So you spoke to this a little bit about how it's driving economic investment in the African entertainment industry. How does it support young entrepreneurs on the continent who are going into the music industry?
So I'm going to give you an example of a guy named Christian who lives in Kigali, and he owns a small business called Rwanda Events. And when we met Christian, I don't know, almost a year ago, he employed, 25 people. Mm-hmm. And he did conferences and things in Kigali. And so we met Christian and we said, we want you to work with you in order to produce the Kendrick Lamar show. And he's like, that's a big show. We're going to work with you. So the first thing we want to do is for a major artist like Kendrick, the screens are hung from the ceiling of an arena like BK Arena. Right. But BK Arena had never hung screens. They didn't even know what the engineering approved load was for the screens. And our friend Christian at Rwanda Event said, not only did I not know how, I don't own the cables that suspend from the ceiling. So we're like, okay, we know how to do this. So we bring in the engineers to certify what the BK Arena building is for what load can now be supported. We then purchased the cables because honestly, we were doing it so quickly, we didn't have time to source them. And we said, we're just going to buy them, right, and give them to Christian. And I go, keep renting them. And then, when we come along to do the next show, you can't charge us rent because there really are cables. Right. So, and we brought in the engineers who knew how to do this. Now Christian has done the show with us. So he has the cables. He has the know-how. He now has it on his resume that he was the producer of the Kendrick Lamar show that we did. And he knows what he needs to do to run a show at that scale. That's on one level. And right down to the lady who ran the transportation company for the amount of cars that you bring in with all of this, she now has a whole new system. So these are small things that are all adding up. And then the other piece the reason why I tell the cable story is I'm working with banks and development banks to make sure that small businesses like Christian can get the loan they need in order to buy something like cables or another van for transportation and get that loan at a super small rate. So, and I help de-risk that loan for the lender because I'm telling them the Global Citizen is hiring them and they do need that van and I'm the first person renting it from them. So those are small examples of how the jobs get created on the ground. And then when Move Africa, moves to our next city, Christian still has that know-how and still has it on his, corporate resume. And he's definitely got it on his website that he did the Kendrick show, and that helps drive more business for him.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's incredible. I love that. So given the interconnectedness of the global challenges that we all face, how does Global Citizen collaborate with other organizations and stakeholders to promote holistic solutions and systemic change on a global scale? How do you do that?
Sure. The first thing when we go into a market is look for the local charities, the local businessmen like Christian in Kigali. We don't do any of that on the ground work. I don't want a single local charity to go, oh no, Global Citizen's coming in and it's going to suck the oxygen out of mine.
Right.
I need those people. We are not the traditional charity that builds the schools or the water wells. We need those groups on the ground. I want to take the Global Citizen spotlight and shine that right on what you're doing and hope that more donations come to you from that. We did it in Accra, where we actually brought Usher out to one of our charities and he saw it all and then he posts about it. And now he and some of his friends are actually donors to that particular charity. We want all of them, the local groups, to be happy that we are there with them. We are not in competition.
Right.
That's on the local level. For the businesses, yes, we have a crew, but we're actually a very small organization. I want it all to be run locally. And the team that we brought in to work the Kigali show last year, our idea is that each year we have 25% less of any of our people, and that the people are local, because the point of this is to work ourselves out of a job.
Exactly.
My goal is in 3 years, I'm going to these events as a spectator. I hope to be able to get a good seat to the concert, but it'd be nice to sit down and watch one of them. And then, as I mentioned on with big institutions like Education Cannot Wait, Gavi, the Fund for Vaccine Alliances, Global Fund, those big UN multilateral funds, which are doing really important work on the ground. We work to make sure that, as I said, the overseas aid development is given to those entities, because they actually know how to manage that money. Right. So everything from our on the ground implementation partners to other big UN funds and to other big charities, we want to work with them. The problems are big enough that they actually need all of us working together.
100%. Yeah, for sure. So what advice do you have for individuals who want to become engaged as global citizens and really make that meaningful impact in the fight against poverty, climate change, and inequality?
Well, the first thing you have to do is download our app. Everything starts there.
It does.
Download our app, begin to take action. You'll find it actually feels good. You'll learn something. And the next thing you'll know, you'll have a few points and you're like, oh, maybe I would like to go see that show. Maybe you won't even cash the points in. We have people who have so many points, but they just enjoy being part of the global citizen community.
Yeah.
You will learn, and you will learn about places that you didn't know. If people in New York taking actions for events that we're doing in Africa, I'm pretty sure they're not getting on a plane. They just sort of like being part of it. It is a big community. We follow many of the issues around the systemic causes of extreme poverty, which are about education, health, gender equity, our planet, and really the basic needs that every one of us on this planet totally deserves. Right. So I think for people who want to get involved, first place there, learn, then do come to one of our shows. I have been to many, many of them over 8 years, and there's always a moment in the show when I'm watching it, even though I should know every single thing that's happening on that stage. And you just watch it and you're like, oh my God, I cannot believe we did that. I knew that's what the piece of paper said we were going to do. But when you really see it happen, it's moving. I mean, it's very moving.
Yeah, there's, and as an organization, we work globally as a company, but the feeling that you get being a part of Global Citizen, it fuels your want, need, and desire to do more to change the world. Yeah. And the more of us that do that, we actually can make meaningful change. So yes, thank you.
And music is a big part of that. When you're in Central Park with 60,000 other people and the whole place is singing Bohemian Rhapsody, you're just looking around like, this feels good. When in the BK Arena in Kigali, it was like the hair on my arm standing up. It was unbelievable. It was like being at like a church revival meeting. Yep. This young audience, first they cheered President Kagame, then they cheered their local artists that were on the stage, and then like the roof blew off when Kendrick came, and they knew all the words, every single word to every single thing he did, and you just thought, this is amazing. I'm halfway around the world from where I live, and you know what? Everybody is just happy singing the lyrics just the way my kids would be in the kitchen. So it is really unifying, and it's a great experience.
Yeah, I love that. Liza, thank you so much for this. I so appreciate this. And as a global citizen, I was so eager to get you on the podcast. So thank you. Thank you for taking the time. For our listeners, we will have links, of course, to Global Citizen and some additional information on Liza in the show notes. And we'll see you back here next time. Take care, everybody.
Thanks so much, Robin.
Thank you so much for listening to Women Igniting Change. I know creating change matters to you. If you enjoy what we talk about on the show, please take one action today and share it with someone who could benefit from listening. Until next time, keep standing up and speaking out for what matters.